Thank you all for joining. It's great to have you on board. We're going through these slides. You will notice that your microphones and cameras are switched off. But if you do have any questions throughout, then please put them in the Q&A box and they'll be picked up by my colleagues throughout. So my name's Steve Thorogood. I'm the e-assessment delivery specialist, and I'm joined by my colleague Anna Howard, who's head of qualification, innovation and development. So the webinar will be split into two parts. I'll kick things off talking through the technical requirements of Rogo and some of the rules and regulations, and then I'll hand over to Anna, who'll provide a brief demonstration of Rogo. And obviously, again, if you've got any questions, we'll answer them throughout or at the end of each session. So in terms of getting started, this is some of the basic stuff. But in terms of operating system, please make sure if you're using a Windows device, you need to have Windows 7 or later. If you do have a Mac, it's OS X Mavericks 10.9 or later. In terms of browsers, you need to use Chrome or Edge, so please make sure you're using one of these. There are some question types that are not supported in other browsers, such as Safari, so just make sure you're using Chrome or Edge. In terms of your device, you must have a processor with a minimum speed of 2 gigahertz. Now, most modern machines, laptops, devices, you will have that capacity. But if you are using a slightly older device, just maybe check that before you start your exam. Obviously, internet speed is very important. We do require 5 megabytes per second as a minimum. If you are unsure, you can run a speed test. They only take about 30 seconds. They're free. There is an example there, www.speedtest.net. Like I say, if you don't make 5 megabytes, then please get in contact with us. So in terms of one of the most important things, obviously, with online exams is having a strong connection throughout. So we do recommend, if you can, using an Ethernet cable, which is something that connects your device to your router. They're really cheap. They're only about £8. You can pick them up from Amazon. The one on the slide is 10 meters long, but you can get them up to sort of 30-40 meters. So if you are taking an exam in a room away from your router, you can get them where they're quite long. So if you are unsure, just measure it out, but we do recommend that you buy one. If you can, make sure you turn off things like mobile phones, Kindles, gaming devices, Netflix, Fire Sticks, all those kind of things. They do eat up your bandwidth. So if you are taking your exam, please make sure they're switched off in advance and obviously not during. If you are at home, the other thing to be reminded of is making sure that people that may be in your house, or if they come in throughout the day, remind them that you're taking an exam. You don't want somebody sort of coming in and downloading a film or playing an online gaming system, anything like that can affect your bandwidth. And if you are sitting an exam for 3 hours, obviously you don't want to be kicked out. Couple of reminders: just make sure that your device is not due any system or security updates. We have had candidates in the past who have got halfway through their exam and then their device has decided to do an update and it shut all the programs down. And a reminder also, it sounds silly, but please make sure you're plugged in and switched on. Again, we have had candidates in the past who have been plugged in and forgot to flick the switch and then obviously been kicked out. So that's just a basic reminder, but it does happen. So in terms of Rogo itself, there are two sites. There is a practice site. This is a pinky color. And then we have the live exam site, which is a purpley color. So the practice test site is where you'll find your practice papers and mock exam. And then that's obviously like the pinky colors. Just make sure that you differentiate between the two. The live exam site is where you have you obviously schedule your exam, take your technical test and your specimen test as well. We have had candidates who've contacted us trying to find their exam to schedule on the practice site. And we've also had candidates phoning us on exam day trying to find their exam, but they're logged into the practice site. So just make sure you're in the correct one on exam day. So technical tests, it is essential that you take your technical test in advance of your exam, just to make sure that you can share your screen, your audio and your camera for invigilation purposes. Please be reminded that you'll still need to complete a test, even if you've completed one for a previous exam sitting, okay, because things do change. Technical stuff does get changed. So log into the exam site. You'll see under assignments that there are 3 technical tests. You don't need to do all 3 if you're successful with your first one. So just some basic walkthrough of the technical test. So firstly, you'll be asked to share your camera. Then you place your head into the dotted area, so just make sure that you're seen. Then you repeat your step with your ID. You don't need your actual ID for the technical test. You can just hold up your hand or a packet of tissues, whatever you want. But obviously, you will need your ID for the exam. And then the final, the camera setup. So just make sure you can see yourself. If you can't see yourself, it will just be a black square there. And then if you have been successful with each of those steps, you then click finish. Obviously, if you do take your exam in another environment, or you change or update your device, you will need to do another technical test just to make sure that everything is working. So scheduling your exam. So under the scheduling section, you'll see your exam listed, and then there's a schedule now button, which is on the right hand side. You can schedule your exam up to 4 calendar days before. So this means that if you do have your exam on Monday, you've missed the deadline to self-schedule. So if you haven't scheduled your exam for Monday, please contact us at hello@cipfa.org. Okay, so just a reminder, scheduling an exam to make sure that you're in the live exam site and not the practice site. And make sure you've selected your correct time zone, and this will enable you to schedule your exam in your local time. So you select, once you've gone into there to schedule your exam, you can see that you have the option of remote or local invigilation and the dates and the time slots available. These will appear in your local time zone as well as UTC. Local invigilation, just a reminder, it is only available for students in pre-approved exam centres or for students that have been approved via the reasonable adjustment and extenuating circumstances process. So as you can see, you can reschedule your exam if you do sort of, have a change of schedule in your work environment. You can reschedule up to 4 calendar days before. You just go back out, and then there's an update button that will appear, and you repeat the steps that I used in the previous slide. A quick reminder also, in the live exam site, you have the specimen test. It's really, really useful for candidates, obviously just to familiarise yourself with the question types and to get used to Rogo if you've not used it before. You can take the test as many times as you want, and obviously there you'll have your model answers as well. So it's really useful just to familiarise yourself in advance of your exam. So some reminders also, you can only take your exam on a single monitor. If you want to use a larger screen, you must shut down your laptop, but make sure you have an external webcam fixed to your monitor for invigilation purposes. Please also be reminded that we obviously need to see you to be invigilated throughout, so make sure that your room is well lit. You're not allowed headphones either. Obviously, you could be listening to anything, so make sure that you're not wearing headphones during the exam. And of course, emailing and messaging in Teams is strictly prohibited. So before you start your exam, just make sure that they are turned off, because you don't want things popping up throughout your exam. Exams are recorded for the purpose of upholding our examination integrity, and obviously any signs of malpractice will be noted by the invigilator and reviewed by our compliance team. A reminder also that eating, smoking and vaping are not permitted during your exam. You are obviously allowed to have water in a clear bottle that you can drink throughout. So on exam day itself, we do ask candidates to log in 15 minutes beforehand. You won't physically see your invigilator. They will communicate instructions through the chat function. A reminder also, just I did mention it earlier, but don't forget your ID. Sometimes students can be so focused on getting into the exam, they forget their ID, they then go looking for it, and obviously, then get panicked and get behind. So just a reminder about that. We do advise candidates strongly to visit the bathroom beforehand. Obviously, if you do need to go during the exam, you are allowed, but the exam time won't be paused, so you can lose time if you have to visit the bathroom throughout. If you do need to contact the invigilator, then you can use the chat function, obviously, and then they'll respond as quickly as they can. And if you do, unfortunately, get disconnected, please reconnect as quickly as possible. Exam time will keep running, so it won't be paused. but your answers will be saved every 30 seconds, so you won't lose work. If you do, unfortunately, you get kicked out. So just some final reminders. So what you're only allowed within the exam is a physical calculator. So that can't be a phone, a tablet, or a watch. You're allowed 4 clean sheets of A4 blank paper and a pen, a pencil, and an eraser. A reminder also, you're not allowed to search the internet during the exams. No copying of questions either. And of course, the use of AI is strictly forbidden. Just a reminder again, exams are recorded, so malpractice will be captured. And we do advise candidates also just to familiarise themselves with the full assessment regulations. The address is there, CIPFA /qualifications/student policies, procedures and forms. Within that, you'll find our assessment regulations. We do advise students just to familiarise yourselves so you are aware of all the rules and regs. Obviously, I've covered quite a lot in here, but just familiarise yourselves with the regulations on our website. So the final slide from me, results will be released on the 23rd of January. They will be on my CIPFA and on Rogo from 8:30 in the morning UTC. And obviously, we wish you the best of luck. Anna, over to you.
Thank you, Steve. So we've been answering some questions in the chat box, which you're all not able to see. So I just want to go through some of the common ones. In regards to the Excel spreadsheet, I will demonstrate that to you in a minute. If you are using the Excel working tool along the bottom, you will need to copy everything over into the answer box. For business reporting and public sector financial reporting, there may be an embedded spreadsheet for you to do your answers in, and that's the one that's going to be marked, and I'll show you those in a second. You're not allowed to use 2 screens in the examination. We're unable to watch and monitor both screens, so you will need to disconnect and cover any second screen, so you're only allowed to use the one. In regards to ID, a work ID is absolutely fine, as long as it's got a picture on it, and it's current and in date. If you do lose power, or your Wi-Fi goes down, as we've suggested, please try and use that Ethernet cable, but obviously the internet could still go down. You can rejoin as quickly as possible. If it's for a long period of time, we'd advise you to give us a call on the customer services telephone number, and my colleagues will be on the line to be able to help you. You will be losing time during that. So if it is for a significant period of time, we would then recommend that you put in special considerations. The paper that you can take in, it can be lined, it can be squared, it can be also plain. The main thing is that it's got no writing on it, so it needs to be clean, blank paper. You can't take any notes. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave my colleagues to carry on answering some of those questions. And what I'll do is I will go through the demonstration and then pick up any further questions towards the end that I may not have answered. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to hopefully just share my screen. So hopefully you're able to see my purple site Rogo screen. And I'm sure my colleagues, as I'm picking up my phone to just check Teams, they'll shout at me and let me know if I'm not sharing correctly. So when you log in, you'll have your exam at the top. You'll go through and you will press the start button. Now, this is taking me straight into my examination. You will obviously go through the checks and balances beforehand. So you'll have to line yourself up in your camera, show your ID and all of those different things that Steve's just talked through in that previous demonstration. But once you've gone through all of that, you'll then be brought to this screen. Within this screen, it will tell you exactly what you're looking to do. So this exam has got 8 questions and worth 5 marks and 4 questions worth 15. It will reiterate how long you've got. It will tell you what you're allowed, to make sure that you've just removed any items. It will then go through the functionality that will be available to you in the exam, which I will now show to you. And then down the bottom, very importantly, is our plagiarism and academic misconduct statement. So this is telling you, obviously that all the work needs to be your own. You're not allowed to access anything else within the examination. And when you press the start button down here in the bottom right-hand corner, you are agreeing to those terms and conditions. That's very important because you're agreeing to that. And then if you are found to be in breach of those regulations, that's when the disciplinary panel and exam panel may penalise you. As you can see, I've gone straight into my first question. I've got question 1. This question is worth 5 marks. It says so at the top in that purple bar. I'm on question 1 of 12, and it tells me for this exam, I'm very lucky. I've got 12 days left to sit it. Obviously, you won't have quite that long, and that will time down for you. It will also go red for you within the last 10 minutes. Now, as you'll see, as I'm scrolling to view the question, that timer has disappeared. It's still there, it's right at the top of the screen, but please be aware of the fact that as you're scrolling through your question, you may not always be able to see the time. So please bear that in mind where you're doing some of these very large questions towards the end of the paper, such as business reporting or the strategic case study, that you do keep an eye on your time. You'll see that this is quite a standard, very easy. Please don't judge me on the answer because I'm not reading the question. Drop down style question where you're asked to select true or false. It tells you again at the bottom that this is worth 5 marks. Now, in this paper, you have got access to your pro formas and formula sheets. So this comes up in a PDF. You've got 2 tabs on this particular pro forma. So please make sure you check how many tabs you've got. This, you're able to pick it up and move it around on the screen. So you're able to place it wherever you want to put it to make it a bit easier for you. Now, this is your, if it's down in that bottom left-hand side of the screen, this will remain with you throughout the entirety of your exam. Okay, so you'll have access to it for all of your questions, you'll have formulas, and you will have some pro formas. So this is available for quite a number of exams. If you're unsure whether you're going to get that exam level exhibit, please check your specimen paper or your practice papers to see what you get and what you won't get in the examination. You've also got access to a calculator, although you're able to have one on your desk. There is a reading ruler, which may be useful to some of you if you wanted to use that to go across lines of financial statements, for example, to make sure you're reading them across correctly. You'll have a notepad. So if you wanted to do some essay planning or type any notes very, very quickly, that notepad is there and available to you. You can close that down and reopen it and it saves. Now, very importantly, this is just for your purposes. It's not marked. The examiner does not see it. This is not marked, okay? You've also got a spreadsheet working. Okay, now this looks like Excel, but it isn't Excel. So please do, if you want to use the spreadsheet functionality in the exam, please make sure you're familiar with the different tools that you've got available, the different formulas, and the best way in which to use it. So it's very handy. You can do some sums, you can use formulas within this. You're able to add borders, you're able to format the text, etc., etc. But what you're, okay, so you've got your formulas and everything else in there. You're also then able to copy and paste that into your answer box for some appropriate questions. You can flag a question. So if I wanted to come back because I'm not sure about these two here, I can flag it. And then I can also navigate throughout my whole paper. So if I wanted to, I could press that navigation button. I could jump straight to question 9 and do question 9 first. And then I could navigate myself back and go back to either my flagged questions or to the beginning of the paper. So you can see here as I'm going through, I've gone to question 2. Again, it's worth 5 marks. You can see now I'm on question 2 of 12 and how long I've got left. You've got quite a large amount of information on this particular question. Again, it's quite a straightforward select type question. If I click down here, you'll see I've still got my formula sheet and my pro formas that are going with me throughout my paper. And then you would just go through reading and answering these style of questions. All quite similar styles. Now, as you progress through, some of you will have these styles of questions and some of you won't. This question here, you can see that there is a purple button at the top. This is containing financial information that is relevant only to this question. So up in the top left, if there's a purple button, it will relate to that particular question. Down here, I still got my purple button that's got my pro formas, which has been the same throughout my exam. Okay, so please make sure that you're available and you're reading all of the information that's available. We will give you instructions, so you can see here this exhibit covers the necessary financial and business context to answer the question. Please refer to the question level exhibit above. So you can see there that you can click on it and you can see the information. Again, you're able to move that around the screen, make it bigger and smaller if you need to, so that you can have it down here if you needed it to calculate your creditor days for that particular question. This is more of an essay style question. So along here, you can see that you've got similar functionality to Word, but it's not quite Word. You've got bold, you've got underline, you can align your text, you can change the font size if you needed to, and you've also got bullet points. So if you wanted to, you can have some bullets in your answer. You can also align it, and if you needed to, you could insert a table. Okay, you can also use this function here to make that answer box much bigger or much smaller, depending on what suits you best to answer that particular question. Again, if I click on my notepad, it stayed with me, so any notes you put in here during your exam, it will be there for the entirety of your exam and for each of the questions. But again, that notepad there is not marked, and similarly, the spreadsheet is not marked either. If I wanted to take anything from the spreadsheet and I wanted to copy and I wanted to paste it into my answer, you're able to do that. Okay, so you're able to copy and paste into your answer box to ensure that what you want marked is marked. Okay, so anything that is in this pop-up spreadsheet will not be marked. You need to copy it across. And then carry on through. You can also see up here, I've got some functionality. So if I wanted to, I can highlight text and I can also strike things through. All right, so highlight, strike things through because you've done them. And if I press that little one there at the end, that clears everything you've put into your question. So that might be really helpful for a question such as this, which has got large amounts of information. If I wanted to say I've dealt with that particular note, you're able to do so. Sorry, my scrolling is gone funny. So this here is your 15-mark question, and down here you can see that this particular question has been set up for you, so it has got your pro forma embedded. So you can see the difference here. This spreadsheet is within the answer box for you, so if it's contained within the answer, you're able to use this. It's got some similar functionality that you would expect in terms of formulas, and you're able to type formulas into the particular box. Okay, so you're able to add things up if you wanted to, and it can also show some of your workings for you. So you can see there that I've used the formula functionality within that particular question. Similarly, I have still got my spreadsheet working tool, but I do need to remind you that this one here will not be marked, whereas obviously the answer box within the question will be. So once I've done that, I'm able to carry on through. Scroll down, I've got another exhibit here for this particular question. Again, I'm able to move that around. So if I wanted to drag it further down the screen, I'm able to do so. And then I've got my pro forma template here for me to complete my particular answer. Now you can see on one screen, and if we could give you and allow you to use two, we'd love to be able to do so, but no software platform can cope with being able to share two screens at once. And obviously we wouldn't be able to see what's on your other screen, so you could be cheating, which is why we restrict you to just the one. You can see that it's a little bit tricky. Okay, so here I've got my question level exhibit. I might need to have my formula sheet open as well. And then I'm obviously trying to answer my question down the bottom. So it is quite a lot for you to manage. So we do suggest that you do practice and you know how best to use the particular screen that you've got in front of you, and have things open as and when you need them, know where to find them, be able to close them down to give yourself a little bit more room and a little bit more space. I'm doing this now on quite a small laptop, which does make it quite difficult. We have said to you that you are able to plug your laptop into a larger monitor. But what you would need to do is you'd need to have a USB camera. So buy a USB camera off of somewhere like Amazon, plug it in, put it on top of your monitor, and then close your laptop down. If you do that, you would need to check your settings to make sure that the monitor stays on and you're still able to access Rogo. So we suggest you do your technical tests like that, but it may be using a monitor which has got a bigger screen on it will be much easier for you. But what we do recommend is that you do lots of practice in the system. You've got a specimen paper that comes with your exam booking that you're able to access right up until the day before your exam. The day of your exam, you're not able to access that specimen. And for those of you that have got course bookings, you're also able to access the practice tests, so the pink site that Steve referred to earlier. So just scrolling through my paper, get to the end, I'm finished. When I press the finish button, it will take me to my navigation page. This will show me if I've still got any questions flagged. It's telling me that I've not completed question 8 or I haven't seen question 8. So you might want to go back to that. And then once you're happy and you're ready, then you can press the finish button. Once you press that finish button, you won't be able to go back in and access the exam. So hopefully you've been able to see that. Let me now just go into the question and answer box and see what's coming up. You can't highlight your exhibits, unfortunately, because it's a PDF. So you're only able to highlight it if it's in the question stem on those word questions. So unfortunately, you're not able to highlight the PDF document, which would be your advanced materials or those question level exhibits. Yes, please try and log in 15 minutes before the exam just to make sure that everything's set up and ready to go for you. That start button won't appear until your exam time is due to start, but it will enable you to go through the checks beforehand. To copy using the formulas, you'll need to format the cells. Okay, so if you go into the system, you'll need to have a practice with it. All right. So if you go in and have a practice with it, then what you can do is you can copy it without the formulas and then recopy it with the formulas. So go in and practice that on your particular system and on your setup. Just going back through some of the other questions. Yes, you can have printed copies of the advanced materials for DSDA and the strategic case study, but they need to be clean copies. You can't upload the Excel spreadsheet to be marked. Everything needs to be in the answer box. So the only time the Excel spreadsheet will be marked is if it's a spreadsheet question type and that spreadsheet's embedded within your answer box. You can copy and paste from the question stem into your answer box as well if you want to, and you can copy and paste from the pro formas, but both of those you need to practice that on your particular system to see how it best works. So in a lot of cases you'd use the shortcuts for that, so Control C, Control V to copy, Control C to copy, Control V to paste, but go in and practice how it's best to do that. Let me just go back in and see if I can access that, because there's still some questions coming up on the formula aspect. Hang on, I'm just going to need to reopen the system. Is it going to let me go back in because I've just finished that particular test? So hopefully you can see here that I am putting 2 + 2 = 4. So let me just go to a question that this is most appropriate for. I think question 8, maybe, yeah. So you can Control C and Control V into that particular box. And then I think if you go to formulas and you go to show formulas, okay, under the formula tab, you can then copy and also paste that into the answer box. So if you wanted to show what you were putting in there, then that's how it would show the formula. So in that particular question, it's saying C3 + D3 because that's what you've put into your answer. Okay. If this was the type of question that you were doing, my recommendation would be that that's not going to be very helpful to the marker because they don't know what C3 is and they don't know what D3 is. So here I would just put brackets 2 + 2 to show my workings. So that's how I would show my workings in that particular question, rather than actually showing the formulas, because C3 and D3 isn't going to be particularly helpful. Okay. So I would show my workings like that. But if you want to show your formulas, you can press the show formula button and that will show the formulas. Okay. And then I'm using my shortcuts of Control and paste, Control V, Control C to copy and paste into your answer box. Okay, so let me go back to the Q&A. You'd need to have scheduled your examination. So hopefully you've scheduled your examination. And once you've scheduled your examination, it will list under the courses and assignments where your exam will be. Please make sure you're in the purple site and not the pink site. You need to be in Rogo exam, not Rogo test. Okay, I've got no open questions left on the chat, and I don't think any of my lovely colleagues have messaged me to say that there's anything that I have missed that's come up regularly. So all that's really left for me to say, and I'm doing this very slowly just in case anyone has got any last questions that come through, in which case I'll answer them. But if they don't, all that's really left for me to say is for myself and the team to wish you good luck in your exams next week. If you've got any problems, you can phone the customer services telephone number on the website and you can press the correct button for the exams team, and myself and my colleagues will help you. And as I've said that, we've just got a couple of questions coming in. Yes, you can use a laptop stand and a plug-in keyboard and mouse. That's not a problem. You'll be expected to do a room scan, so just make sure you can do that with your laptop before you pop it back on the stand. There are practice tests, more practice tests in the pink site, in the practice test site, but there is a specimen test which you'll have access to up until the day before your exam in the purple site. So there are practice tests in both sites for you, but there's only one on the exam site. You'll find a couple more on the practice site. You press the finish button at the end. So if you run out of time, it will just automatically submit for you. Or if you finished before the end of your time, you just press the finish button down on the right-hand side. It will show you that navigation screen to make sure that there's nothing that you flagged and nothing that you want to go back to. And then you press finish and that's it. And then you can close down the examination. Yes, we'll be sharing the slides later with everybody, and there will be a recording on the website. It may not be this particular recording, but we'll get a recording out to you. You need to keep your room as clear as possible. So we're not asking you to move furniture and things out of your room, but we would ask that you've got no textbooks, no copies of notes, no learning materials, nothing on the walls that remind you of acronyms for your debits and credits and things like that. So it does need to be under exam conditions, but we're not expecting you to move everything out of the room and furniture. The exam will start when you press the start button. But obviously you are scheduled for a particular time, which is why we're encouraging you to be there 10 or 15 minutes early to ensure you've done all of the room checks, etc. Okay, I've got no open questions, so I'd encourage you to start logging off. Thank you all very much for your time today, and good luck next week in your exams. And thank you to Steve and Rachel and the team for their presentation and answering the questions. Good luck next week, guys. Thank you.